Bruno lives in Berlin with his parents and his sister Gretel. While he is having fun with the children, an important levee is being arranged at his home. Bruno's father, Ralph, has been promoted, but because of this, the whole family has to move to another part of the country. When Bruno arrives home, his sister is already aware of the changes to come. They break the news to Bruno as a family. He does not want to leave his home. He likes it here. He has friends here, but there is nothing to do. His father is in the army and he must obey orders, especially now, when the war is in full swing. In the evening, many important people in uniform gather at their house. They salute Ralph as he enters the living room. Ralph's parents are also here, but his mother is not as enthusiastic about her son's promotion as his father. Ralph asks his mother not to reveal her anti-Nazi views, otherwise the whole family might be punished. Finally, all his belongings are packed. Bruno says goodbye to his beloved home and friends and leaves. He is brought to a large, brick, and somewhat creepy house in the woods. The house is behind a high fence with soldiers with dogs on duty. Bruno doesn't like it here, but he promises to get used to it. The window in his room overlooks the forest. In the distance, Bruno sees some buildings behind a fence. The boy thinks it is a farm where people grow vegetables and ranch cattle. Yet for some reason, all the farmers wear striped pajamas, something Bruno can't comprehend. Bruno tries to find out more about these people from his mother, but she does not instantly understand what her son is talking about. When she looks through the window in her son's room, she tells him that strange people live there and that it is better not to approach them. However, Bruno has seen children there, and he wants to make new friends. This prohibition forces Bruno to stay at home for days and days. He is not allowed in the backyard. He can only play checkers alone in his room, and there is nothing to do on the playground in front of the house. When the whole family is having dinner, Ralph announces that the children no longer need to attend school. He has hired a tutor for them. Bruno doesn't mind, since he's never studied at home before. After lunch, he lies under a tree and realizes that one of the branches would make a nice swing. Bruno goes to ask his father's driver, Lieutenant Kotler, for a tire. Bruno's 12-year-old sister is fond of him. Kotler calls up Paul, a Jew, who peels potatoes, takes care of the grounds, and does other dirty work. He tells him to give the boy a tire. The lieutenant's treatment of Paul alarms Bruno. Paul gives Bruno the tire and they build a swing out of it. As the boy swings on it, he sees smoke rising from the farm. He stands on the tire to see what is burning there, but he falls and hurt his knee. Paul comes to the rescue. He carries Bruno into the house and then treats and bandages the bruise. They start chatting, and Paul tells him that he used to be a doctor and had his own practice. Bruno, on the other hand, is perplexed as to why the doctor has changed his job to peel potatoes for his father. Upon learning that Paul has helped Bruno, his mother overcomes herself and thanks the old Jew for his help. Finally, a tutor arrives. He has a conversation with Bruno and Gretel and finds out that Bruno only reads adventure books. He gives him a propaganda book on recent history. The children of a Nazi officer must be educated accordingly, and the tutor is here to ensure that. Bruno, however, did not find such a reading to his liking. He noticed that the gate to the backyard was open and decided to escape. There was a window in the barn, and the boy got through it easily. He ran through the woods, then across the creek, and ended up at the fence covered with barbed wire. Behind the fence sat a boy in striped pajamas with a number on his chest. The boys got to know each other. Bruno's new acquaintance's name was Shmuel. Bruno has asked Shmuel about the place where he lives, but Shmuel doesn't know much about it himself. He only knows that it is impossible to get out of here, that they are constantly forced to work and receive almost no food. From time to time, he escapes to the fence to rest from his hard work and the angry soldiers. However, the whistle blows, and Shmuel has to run back, as all the prisoners are gathered in the barracks. At home, Bruno stole a chocolate bar to feed Shmuel. When he arrived at the fence, his new buddy was not there. Bruno started throwing everything he could get his hands on over the fence, and a piece of iron got caught on the wire. Turns out the fence was under electricity. Bruno thought it was to keep the animals that were bred there from escaping from the farm. That day, Shmuel never showed up. The propaganda taught by the tutor did not please Bruno, but his sister, on the other hand, took it all very personally. She threw away her dolls and decorated the walls of her room with posters of the Führer and Nazi mottos. When Bruno's mother went into town, he took advantage of the moment and went to see Shmuel. He asked the boy about the chimneys that occasionally emitted smoke and smelled strongly. Shmuel said that it seemed to be a place where dirty rags were burned. Ralph's relationship with his mother has completely soured because of his new position. However, Ralph's father is supportive of his son and would love to come to visit. Meanwhile, the tutor explains to Bruno that the Jews are the real evil and that they are the ones the German people are fighting right now. Bruno finds this hard to believe, but if an adult says so, it's probably true. He dragged the treats out of the kitchen again to feed Shmuel. Bruno took the ball with him to play, but the boy refused to do so. He is afraid that they will be spotted by the camp guards. Bruno's mother had just returned from another trip, and she caught a smell coming from the camp pipes. Lieutenant Kotler dropped a careless phrase, and Elsa realized that prisoners were being incinerated in the crematorium. She was furious with her husband, but the latter told her that this was a secret project and that no one was supposed to know about it. He learned from Elsa that the driver, Lieutenant Kotler, had hinted to her about the crematorium. Ralph's father came to visit. A dinner was arranged at their house, to which Lieutenant Kotler was also invited. During the conversation, it turned out that at the beginning of the war, his father had fled the country because he did not share the views of the ruling elite. Kotler realized that his career would be derailed by this news. He became angry and took it out on Paul, who accidentally knocked over his wine glass. Kotler carried him into an adjoining room and beat him severely. Paul was never seen in the house again. Bruno cried for a long time after this sight. His sister tried to comfort him. She told the boy that the Jews were evil and should be destroyed. Yet the boy could not believe it, because all the Jews he knew did not seem to be villains. Important guests are to come to Ralph's house. A gala evening is being prepared. To clean the glasses, Shmuel is brought in. He and Bruno started talking, and then the latter treated his friend to a cookie. Kotler came into the room, noticed Shmuel eating the cookies, and accused him of stealing. But the boy said that Bruno had given him a treat, that they were friends. When an enraged Kotler asked Bruno about this, he was frightened and said he did not know the boy. The lieutenant promised to punish the thief severely. Bruno grieved for a long time over his betrayal, but then he spied a film that Ralph was showing to his important guests, and he was relieved. This film showed the camp where Shmuel lived. All the Jews in the movie were happy. They had plenty of time to relax and go to the library or the cafeteria. The children played merrily and laughed a lot. At this point, Bruno began to feel proud of his father because he kept order and safety at this camp. Lieutenant Kotler was sent to the front for not denouncing his father. After that, life in the house became dull and joyless for Gretel. Bruno, on the other hand, kept running to the fence of the camp, hoping to see Shmuel. He wanted to apologize to his friend and explain that he had been afraid of Kotler at that time, so he lied. One day, Shmuel appeared at the spot. His face had not yet healed from the beating. Bruno apologized, and they made up. That same day, Ralph received sad news. There had been a bombing, and his mother was dead. Despite the fact that she was against the Nazi regime, flowers were brought to her coffin with a card from the Führer. This was the last straw for Elsa. She and Ralph had a long argument and decided that the children would be better off at their aunt's, away from this place. Gretel is ready to go with pleasure, but Bruno does not want to lose his friend. Yet there is nothing to be done, so they have to go. Bruno runs to tell this news to Shmuel, who shares his own news. His father has disappeared somewhere. Bruno promises to help his friend find him. He wants to dig under the fence to get into the camp, and Shmuel promises to bring him a robe so no one will notice Bruno. On the day of departure, Bruno prepares a sandwich for his friend, picks up a shovel, and runs to the fence. But the sandwich falls out of his pants on the way. The boys build a dig. Bruno changes his clothes and makes his way to Shmuel. At the camp, he realizes that things are far from what was shown in his father's film. The boys can't find Shmuel's dad. They go to the barracks to look there, but suddenly the guards take everyone in the barracks and lead them away to another building. Shmuel and Bruno end up in the crowd as well. Elsa, meanwhile, is already looking for her son. She and Gretel run into the barn where he used to climb out of the fence and see a sandwich. Elsa realizes that the boy has escaped. She asks her husband for help. The soldiers break down the door leading outside the fence and rush out on the trail. At the camp fence, they find Bruno's clothes and a dig. The boys have already been led into a gloomy room with the others, forced to undress, and told that they must now take a shower. They were driven into a cramped cell, had something poured over the top of them, and corked all the exits. Ralph was too late to realize where his son was. When he ran to the gas chamber, all its contents were already dead.